My name's Rebecca Harrington. I'm the health educator at SUNY Oneonta. I began working here in fall of 2004, so I'm a faculty fellow for I think 3 or 4 semesters now. I signed up as soon as the call went out. I enjoy sharing my knowledge. So Articulate Storyline is an e-learning authoring software tool. There doesn't seem to be too many different programs. This one kind of fell into my lap, and so it's the one I have run with, but I think taking the time to learn it, and I feel like once you understand the environment that you're working in, it's pretty easy to find stuff. Like, you might have to look it up the first time, but you can pretty much always find it the second time. The story with how Articulate Storyline came into my life was actually through sexual violence prevention program. New York State actually began with SUNY deciding that there was going to be a new sexual violence policy that meant that all incoming students needed to receive sexual violence prevention programming education. And one of the easier ways to do that, because we knew we were going to be audited, that was to distribute this education in an online fashion where students would have to log in. We'd be able to track that. Let's get some people to the table and let's start discussing, could we develop an online program that anybody could use that would maybe be easily customizable, but would also ensure that we're hitting all of those measures. So we sat of like, well, yeah, you have this mandated content you have to give to people, but how do we shape that so it's engaging and it makes sense to the context of, to anybody? So we have a bench and we started asking questions like, how are we going to deliver? We can design this content. How are we going to deliver this content? And she's like, well, what are you actually going to design it in? And nobody really had any clue, but I had actually brought along a residence hall director who worked with us at one point, who I knew had some online education experience. And he's like, well, there's this software program called Articulate Storyline. And everybody whipped out their phone and everybody started looking at it. And we're like, well, that's affordable. And, we're looking at, okay, it can export files that we could import into Blackboard. So, thinking about how faculty might want to use this software, and it's that I've done, I took a PowerPoint that I wanted students to go out and use as a training, and as anybody knows, trying to get half a dozen college students in the same place at the same time that you're also available is really difficult. And with Articulate Storyline, you can import PowerPoint slides. So what I can do is I can import a PowerPoint and then I can insert a video of myself talking through each slide. So potentially, if you're somebody who that once or twice a semester you're going to travel for one reason or another and you want your students to still receive content, you could preload one of your PowerPoint presentations into Articulate. You can use a $25 webcam and a $20 microphone and capture content, and then you'd have a self-guided lecture. And I think the power of Articulate Storyline is you can develop something that is a very specific guided method through content, or you can have a much more free-form kind of an experience. And you can also develop things that read like apps. There's a couple of different ways to export the content once you have developed and built it in Storyline. So you can export it in a way that it uploads into Blackboard and it launches and the student has that experience, which is how we do our sexual violence training here on campus. But I've also used it in a web-based fashion, so you can export out an HTML file, you upload it into the server, you have a link that you send students, and it launches this whole thing. I think one of the places where this would be fun for faculty is you could do quizzes. I think you have the opportunity to gamify some experiences. So, so-and-so is going to go through this experience and how is it going to go? Like a choose your own adventure, like testing knowledge along the way. I don't have video editing skills, like that's not in my skill set, but I can capture me talking about the slide because I've done it a bazillion times and I can get it in there. And if I do it wrong, I can delete that one. I can do another take. It's a couple minutes and then I can just trim off the ends because that's built right into Articulate Storyline. I do really love playing with this software. I think it is a fun way to solve problems. So, I'm happy to talk and say, what, maybe that isn't the right tool for what you need to do. It might be more trouble than it's worth. But I think if you're willing to kind of think, outside the boundaries of your normal ways of doing things, there's some power in learning this tool. And again, yes, there's an investment of time up front, but once you get rolling, you'll start to see how you can use it in lots of different ways. And perhaps, and I think at this point for me, it's thinking about, as I'm gathering content for some specific task, I'm also in the back of my head thinking like, how am I going to use that content later in another place? Yeah, like now I do add image tags in my PowerPoint presentations because I'm conscious of those.